Well, good evening and welcome, friends and family of Love and the Scriptures. So good to have you with us on tonight for this installment of our show. We've got some finish up stuff to do, some catch up stuff to do, and then we're going to talk about some new stuff too. And you're probably saying, well, it's just 30 minutes in. That's a lot of stuff, and you're absolutely right. So we're gonna get ourselves situated to be able to touch all of those things that we are have in mind for us to share on tonight. Sister Jackie Atchison. Hey, Jackie, bless you. So good to have you on here with us, to see you here. You are welcome to be joining us on tonight. As we are beginning, just by way of beginning an introduction, first of all, I want to acknowledge that this is Teacher Appreciation Week. And because I am a classroom teacher, I am an educator, obviously, I got to give that shout out to all of you who are a part of the education community, no matter what level. Shout you out at all levels, no matter what the subject. For all of you, even if you're not inside the classroom, you are a teacher, you are an educator in any capacity. We want to give a good God bless you to you. And I'm saluting you and thanking you for all of the work that goes into what is done by teachers, by educators. It for sure, in many regards, it is a thankless job for what it costs us personally to be able to do it. What we give out, the little that we get in return, and what we have to face to be able to do our jobs. Many ways, it's an insurmountable task. Seemingly, it is a tedium of the highest orders in some circumstances and situations. But there are veiled values that actually come with the work that is done by educators too. And one of those things that is like a great reward is how and when years down the road, when you are met with those who have been your students before, and they talk to you about and share with you the impact that you have had, the investment that you have made, the return that actually has come out of what you have done with and for them as a teacher, as an educator. That's one of the veiled values that comes. And believe it or not, just one time for a student to tell you somewhere down the road that you've done something really great for them as a teacher, that makes up, that actually covers all of the hard work and the heavy costs that are associated on the front end of what we do. And so, God bless you, teachers. We got a good day. Hey, Sister Portia, congratulations for being educator that you are, and thank you as well for all that you do. Okay, Sister Vicky Williams, God bless you both. Thank you for being here. Glad you're here. Tulsa people and California people, San Francisco. God bless you. And let me just share. I just wanted to take just probably about 5-6 minutes to do this part in that vein of Teacher Appreciation Week. I don't know how many of you actually got to see the CNN interview that was conducted by the international journalist Ed Lavendra, or that aired on Anderson Cooper's show last Tuesday. But that came on, as I said, last Tuesday. And then the next day, the written interview that I did with Nikhil Ellis from Atlanta, she drove in to interview me. That published the next day, April 26th, on their website, CNN's website. But I got this in the mail here at the school Tuesday. This is from Ed Lavendera from CNN. Maybe you can see that. You can't read it necessarily, but you can see this comes from him. This is what he wrote. Mr. Williams, I wanted to take a moment to say how much I enjoyed sitting in your class last month. You are clearly the kind of teacher that students will remember and be grateful for long into their lives. It was an honor to meet you. Best. Ed Lavendera. And so getting a shout out from the journalist who interviewed us, that was really big to me. And of course, that coming in Teacher Appreciation Week, and I don't know if he coordinated that in that way or not, but for him to make an acknowledgement about his experience in my classroom and what he thought of, what that kind of impact that they may make, that was big for me. And so thank God for people being able to see and acknowledging the work that is done. And that's why I took this time out for us to acknowledge you educators, you teachers, for the work that you actually do. All right. So last time, what we were talking about, I want to pick up right where we left off because I want to move with an intentional pace tonight. We're talking about the 5 musics that are created in the United States of America. And I'll have to mention as well that these 5 musics are the parents of all of what we have in the music genre. No, I can't say it that way. They are the parents of, with exception of 2 types of music. All the rest of the music in the United States comes out of these. And I'm inviting you always, as always, to be thought partners, to be conversation partners. And so share your ideas, your disagreements, your agreements, any way that you are interactive or feel to interact with this presentation about this music, do that. But follow my strain and listen to how I want to present this to us. Last time I got to tell us that in my estimation of having studied with my portion of study that I've given to this. And of course, this whole presentation of Black music comes in my class, African American Studies course, and Advanced Placement African American Studies course. And when we talk about World History Survey, those are the 3 classes that I'm teaching this semester. That study of music comes in all of those courses. With that, it begins. Dr. Eddie Davis. Hey, brother, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you on here, Pastor. You are welcome. I started with 2 brands of music, and this, for me, as a result of my study, shows that the first music that comes created on this soil becomes that of the Negro spiritual. We call it Negro spiritual, but the spirituals. This is the music that, as the African is traversed from the continent of Africa, because, and let me say to us, sisters and brothers, there were no slaves brought from Africa. People were brought from Africa, Africans, and of different tribes and of different regional coalitions. People were brought from Africa, Africans, and they were forced into slavery. They went into enslavement. No slaves were taken. It was people. But when they came, as they came, just as culture does, they brought their culture with them. that culture came with them in music as well. Don't have time to talk about it, and I can't even show it, but let me recommend to us Wintley Phipps, who is a Seventh day Adventist minister, singer as well, gospel singer. He sang with Bill Gaither groups that he did. They did all of these kinds of concerts, and one of those shows, and you can YouTube this. I'm recommending you to look up Wintley Phipps with the Bill Gaither group, and he's doing an analysis. Actually, he's doing a lesson on Black music. He goes into talking how that just about all Negro spirituals, he say, can be played on just the black chord, the black keys on the piano. Just about all the Negro spirituals. And he gives a demonstration of those songs that you will know for sure. And he plays them on those keys. He goes into talking about how that one of the most, if not the most famous gospel song in the world, written, and he plays it. It's one of the ones that he plays on there. But he says that the song itself is in the exact order of what is called African sorrow songs from the west coast of Africa. That song, and he demonstrates on the keys the whole piece of the rhythm of how that goes on the black keys, Amazing Grace. And if you know anything about that song, John Wesley is the one, not John Wesley. I'm drawing a blank, can't even think of his name right now. But the writer of that, John Newton is the writer of that song, who was, before he was a preacher and musician, he was the captain of a ship that brought Africans to the Americas for enslavement. And Wintley Phipps talks about it, how in his imagination, and you just track it out, you just got to see it for yourself, what Newton would have heard with the Africans being down below in the hull of the ship, that they would be humming, they would be singing their dirges, those sorrow songs. And the tune to Amazing Grace is the exact tune of the African sorrow songs. All right. My point in that is that as the African comes from the other side of the world, culture, any people, when you move anywhere, culture goes with them, that they brought that culture, and particularly in music. And when they get to this side, those songs are experienced and expressed as they are bearing the burden in the heat of the day of whatever the field work is, or whatever particularly field work. They make the expression, singing out to the God that is connected to their life and meaning. And those spirituals, and you know what different things, Go Down Moses and Swing Low Sweet Chariot and If I Got My Ticket, Can I Ride? And all of those different songs have the context of those songs come out of the experience of the memory that they have of where they come from, and the experience with God as they are now in this new place. And they express then what is going on in their mind, in their hearts, in their lives through these spirituals, which is based again in their connection with God. And some of you will say, well, everybody who came as enslaved people here, or came into enslavement here, were not Christian. You're absolutely right, because there were Muslims as well who came as prisoners of war and were enslaved here, and there were atheists as well. But the music that is originally expressed by the people is the spiritual. And just being Muslim don't mean you don't sing to God. There are all kind of Muslim songs. But that music, beginning music, the Negro spiritual, the spiritual, out of that music, or along with that music, because that's the religious sentiment that is coming, is the blues music. Blues, the same idea of the expression of uh, what the experience is of having been taken from home, the experience of forced labor, the experience of everything compounded together is the social side of expression that comes from the African in America now. Negro spiritual, the religious sentiment of that, the blues, the social sentiment of that, because again, everybody were not believers. All of those who came from the continent of Africa did not have a spiritual sensibility or a relationship with God, but everybody has feeling. Everybody experiences and has their their feeling about what is going on with them. The spiritual reflects the Negro spirituals reflect the spiritual sentiment there, the religious sentiment. The blues becomes the expression that people make in the social context. But what else is true? A lot of the blues came from Christian people too, so that the music is not relegated to believer and non-believer. Music in its totality is an expression in its simplicity. It's about how people feel. Religious people feel just as well as non-religious people feel. Everybody does. And so that the music then that is coming from the people who have this experience, some who believe in God and trust in him, some who don't know him, but are still telling their stories out of their emotion. There is the spiritual, the Negro spiritual, and there is the blues. Directly, then flowing from that music becomes jazz. So much more to be said on both of those spirituals, Negro spirituals, to be said on blues as well. But again, I'm giving a particular attention to getting to say what I want us to discuss and to cover in this this segment. Coming from those two, the music is jazz. Ain't got time to die. Nobody knows the truck. Come on, Doc. I've seen. That's it. You know what I'm talking about, Pastor. You know, Pastor Davis. Out of those two musics, Negro spirituals and the blues, naturally flows jazz music. This discussion comes up for us because last month, April is jazz. Was Jazz Appreciation Month? Well, it always is Jazz Appreciation Month. But jazz is the offspring of what is the spirituals and what is the blues. What'll be very interesting if you take a dive into or to reach into jazz music, to really get a sense in terms of listening to musicians, especially older ones and ones who have a greater capacity in terms of the history of the music, for them to talk about the spirituality and that nature of social consciousness that lends to, that informs, and that influences the blues. One of the that influences jazz. And I have to go back and say this. Just one other comment about blues as we are here. Most people have a misconception that blues is just sad music. Some people even think and believe that that you have to have the blues to sing the blues or to feel the blues. And I want to say to that, in terms of a broader understanding, I made this statement some years ago. I actually posted it on Facebook, a Facebook post I made, that blues are the middle C of life. That is the mood that gets you through. What does that mean? Middle C is in all of music and all of what is tone and sound and notes and all of those kinds of things. Middle C, out of all of what is the sound of music. See what I did right there? Sound of music. The middle C is the note that's at the center. That's at the heart of everything. Every other note is somehow surrounded by the middle C. I said that blues is the middle C of life. It's the center of what's going on because it's the mood that gets you through. You don't have to be sad to have the blues, because there are a lot of people who can't handle the happy moments in life. I had a reference to that just happened very recently. Somebody was talking about people pray more, how the need people need prayer more when they're having negative experiences in life, because that's what's most difficult for people to handle. Let me tell you what I've learned, what I'm learning at 54 years old, about to be 55 in July. There are many people who can't handle the high times of their lives. There are a lot of people who can't handle when blessings overtake them. There are a lot of people that can't handle when they've got a lot of money or a lot of something else. Those things can wreck people. That experience, having a higher experience in life, can wreck people just as much as having a negative and a low experience in life. And so middle C addresses what are those low points in my life that are hard to handle. Middle C addresses the high points that are difficult for me too, because as I understand, it is the mood, the middle C, that gets you through life, whether it's good times, whether it's bad times. The blues, which is the middle C. And so I'm not making any case for the blues. I told you I'm a blues man. I ain't trying to make you love it. I just needed to make that point about it. And again, that out of the spirituals, that out of the blues comes what is jazz. The flow from that creation of music, and I'm talking about the 5 musics that are created in the United States of America, created by African American people. From jazz comes what most people won't even know what I'm talking about when I call it this, but rhythm and blues is what comes out of the creation of jazz music. Jazz, as it stands by the International Musical, I forget the whole name of the organization, but it is regarded as the only art form created in the United States of America, jazz music. It is regarded as a created thing, and not just music form, but art form. All right, Doc. Pastor Eddie Davis says, now you're talking about Duke Ellington and Mary Lou Williams. Come on, Doc. You know about Mary Lou Williams? All right, now. Jazz is regarded as the only art form created in the United States of America. However, my contention is that it is true. Jazz is a created art form in the United States, but it is not the only one. 5 musics: Negro spirituals, blues, jazz, and then rhythm and blues, what most people know as R&B. That is the natural progression out of which music created by African Americans have actually flows, how it actually flows. And the great case is made, and there's not a lot of detraction in it, that out of rhythm and blues comes rock and roll. That's not what I'm talking about right now, but I'm putting it out there because those of you who know the history of Little Richard and Chuck Berry, that the world famous, world renowned, there you go, Chubby Checker. Yes, Sister Portia, y'all know, and Chuck Berry. But the greatest world renowned rock and roll singer learned everything he knew from watching Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and some others. Elvis Presley, coming out of Muscle Shoals and out of Mississippi there, he came in contact with and was the student of blues and rhythm and blues artists. And his artistry, even his moves, his dancing, all of those things, even his fashion, was something that came from African-American artists of note. There are interviews of Little Richard that you can watch on YouTube as well, where you can see this kind of thing. Make sure y'all do see that one with Wintley Phipps on Amazing Grace. All right. YouTube that one and make sure you see that one. But Little Richard is there also to talk about how that influence of rhythm and blues that they played and then up-tempoed it as rock and roll is what others got the credit for. I've given us 4 of those musics: Negro spirituals, blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, and from rhythm and blues. And of course, if you follow that string to the left out of rock and roll, you get pop music. But the strain of African American creative music, the 5th one, is hip hop. It is rap music that comes directly out of the strain of rhythm and blues, R&B music. Very interestingly, what you'll note in the earliest stages of hip hop and rap music, the 1970s and 1980s, hip hop music was foundationally, or at least let me say it this way, R&B music is foundationally embedded in hip hop music to the point where almost every of the tracks, where for sure the most popular songs in hip hop music from 1970, 1980, the sampling of R&B songs is what those songs were literally built on. And more times than not, even the lyrics from the R&B music were foundational to the earliest hip hop and rap songs that existed. 5 musics created in the United States of America. I just threw that part in for free. So I got to make this as I'm going to come to a wrap up, because blues is the highlight there, particularly because I make the claim that the psalmist, because somebody asking, what does this have to do with the scriptures? I'm so glad you asked. I make the claim that the psalmist is a blues man. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. That's a claim I make, and I'll press it even further and say that the psalmist had to be black because of these songs that we have written by him. What I want us to do, because that's going to be our focus next time. For 2 weeks, I'm saying I'm going to talk about the Psalms as a blues man, and haven't gotten to do. Next week's focus is going to be about my claim about the psalmist as a blues man. I'm speaking particularly specifically of David, and my claim. Y'all hear me keep saying that the psalmist is a blues man. And so what we'll do is we'll get to all right, talk to me, Pastor. All songs of music genre came out of the Psalms. All right now. All right. Now y'all hear Pastor Eddie Davis making a claim too about this music. So I ain't the only one jumping out here bad. Pastor Eddie Davis is jumping out of here with it too, the same way. And so we'll take an examination. We'll look at a few of the Psalms, and from looking at them, examining what has gone into the Psalm, what the subject matter is, what is talked about there, what the tone that the psalmist is actually taking, and it's a varied mood that the Psalms come in. There's some really high, lofty praise psalms. There's some really low, dark psalms. But we're going to look at a couple of those. We're going to examine those for next week. And we're going to talk through my claim that is pressed, that the psalmist is a blues man. You can take the 23rd Psalm, of course, take the 1st Psalm, of course. You can take the 51st Psalm. You can take the 47th Psalm. Those will be some that we will look at on next time. 23rd Psalm, 1st Psalm, 47th Psalm, 51st Psalm. Check those out, and we'll come back next week to talk about the psalmist as a blues man and why I think that is so. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on tonight. So glad to have had you with us. Come back next week, Wednesday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for Love in the Scriptures. See you there.
another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are your works, O Lord God Almighty. Just and pure are thy ways, thou King of saints. Just